There is growing concern over the fate of a Saudi Arabian journalist who disappeared while visiting the kingdom's consulate in Turkey. Turkish police sources suggest he may have been killed inside, but there's been no official response from the country's authorities. Saudi Arabia says the accusations are baseless. Caroline Rigby has more.
Jamal Khashoggi entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on Tuesday. He hasn't been seen since. The alarm was raised by his Turkish fiancée who'd been waiting outside. Since then, rumours have been swirling about what might have happened to him.
Political act by Mohammed.
Appearing here on the BBC, he's a journalist who, in recent years, has been critical of some moves by Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince and had been living in self-imposed exile outside of the kingdom. Speculation in Turkey has suggested Mr. Khashoggi may have been abducted or even killed within the consulate. But following an investigation by police, there has, as yet, been no official response from the Turkish authorities. Saudi Arabia has dismissed talk of an abduction. It insists the journalist left the building shortly after he entered it. The kingdom's consul general in Istanbul confirmed his country was helping with the search. He opened the doors to the consulate on Saturday in an effort to demonstrate the missing man was not inside.
I would like to confirm that the citizen Jamal is not at the consulate, nor in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the consulate and the embassy are working to search for him, and we are worried about his case.
As the days pass, fears increase for Mr. Khashoggi's welfare. Calls for press freedom and the protection of journalists grow louder too. The Washington Post has left Mr. Khashoggi's column blank to mark his disappearance. What's clear is that the longer this mystery remains unresolved, the more it threatens to deepen strains on an already difficult relationship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Caroline Rigby, BBC News.
Well, Joel Simon is Executive Director of the International Committee to Protect Journalists. I asked him what the next step should be.
First of all, I'm gravely concerned. I'm following developments. I'm reading more and more reports. There are strong indications that Turkish authorities are convinced that Mr. Khashoggi has been killed. We certainly don't know if that's true, but this is the time for anyone with any information, notably the Saudi authorities. They must come forward. They must make it public. This is a very grave moment, and we need those with information to share it with the public.
If he has been targeted, why do you think that would have been?
Well, he was a critical journalist, or he is a critical journalist. That's the thing we really need to stress, that we really hope that this has not occurred. So he is a critical journalist. He has written critically about the Crown Prince. He's been skeptical of some of the reforms that the Crown Prince has implemented. He's been critical in his column for the Washington Post about some of the Saudi policies in Yemen. So there's no question that he's been a thorn in the side of the Saudi authorities and the Crown Prince. And so there's a lot of speculation that they had an animus, and that's why people are concerned.
And let's just broaden this out slightly. I know you as an organisation have had concerns about Saudi Arabia and journalists working there and commenting on it for a while.
Absolutely. Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of talk about reform, but Saudi Arabia, there's not any significant political reform, and Saudi Arabia remains one of the most censored countries in the world. We're getting reports regularly of journalists being detained. A journalist was recently sentenced to a long prison sentence. At the end of last year, there were 7 Saudi journalists in prison. We believe there are more at this time. It's actually difficult to get information. There's no question that Saudi Arabia is a extremely controlled and restrictive country for the media, and that journalists who criticize the authorities do so at their peril.
And just for people coming to this for the first time, a journalist walking into a consulate and then disappearing, and obviously we have stressed quite clearly that we don't know what's happened, but how unusual is that?
I've been doing this job as the executive director of the Committee to Protect Journalists for a decade. Before that, I worked in CPJ's Latin America program, so I've seen a lot. I really hope this is not true, but if he went into an embassy and was killed, this would be one of the most grave and frankly craven crimes that I've ever heard of.
That was Joel Simon speaking to me just a little earlier.